morning, everyone. I'm David Wojcik, the President and CEO of your Mississauga Board of Trade. It's our great pleasure to have you join us today for our virtual town hall with the Honorable Kinga Surma, Associate Minister of Transportation. We had, and when I say we, Brad Butt and I had the pleasure of meeting Minister Surma in the pre-COVID days and discussed the transportation issues in Mississauga. The minister was open-minded and encouraged our ideas, which would benefit businesses and residents in Mississauga, Toronto, and Brampton. And Minister, we look forward to continuing our discussion once the COVID cloud disappears. Before we officially introduce Minister Surma, I would like to thank 407 ETR and CN Rail for their continued support and being our title sponsors for today's event. I'd also like to quickly review the virtual event protocols for this call. All attendees will remain on mute as we are recording this event. A Q&A session will commence immediately after the minister addresses the audience. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to enter your question. Questions will only be visible to MBOT staff and panelists. MBOT staff will review all questions that are asked, and I will do my very best to have all the questions answered by the minister. To officially introduce the minister today and to say a few words, please welcome Kevin Sack, Vice President, Marketing, Communications, and Government Relations for 407 ETR. Kevin?
Thank you. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. We're very pleased to be sponsoring this morning's town hall. And it's a especially important time to be hearing from the provincial government, as all of us, both personally and in business, are facing the ongoing pandemic. The response of all levels of the government and everyone involved in caring for ill and elderly people and conducting the testing has been greatly appreciated. And our company wants to thank the government and all of the essential workers that have kept critical supplies moving and helping those who need it most. The government and health officials have confronted very difficult issues and made some very tough choices. One need only look at the news every day, and the impact on business has been enormous. And as a major transportation corridor, 407 ETR has seen significant reductions in traffic, and we look forward very much, like everyone, to the recovery of all businesses and the rollout of a vaccine. At the outset of the pandemic, our company moved quickly to be of assistance both to hospital workers and the public and those who rely on extra types of support. And to serve the people of the GTA on behalf of our customers and our board, we gave hospital workers $300,000 worth of free usage of the road and went on to give a further $1.2 million to GTA hospitals across the corridor. And then to help United Way agencies, we gave an emergency donation of $1.25 million, which is now followed up as part of a $4 million 3-year commitment to help United Way this year, next year, and the year after, with millions of dollars of assistance during both the response and the recovery. We were the first Canadian company to make a multi-year commitment. We're very pleased to do it on behalf of our customers and our board and our shareholders. So being part of transit and transportation, we've added 600 kilometers of new lanes to the road, just finished 33 between 410 and 401 recently. And that is right in the Mississauga corridor that's so vital to us. And this is what makes today's event so important. And so it's my pleasure now to introduce our guest speaker for today, the Associate Minister of Transportation, Kinga Surma, who is also the MPP for Etobicoke Centre. Minister Surma is focused on working with partners to move forward to get people in the GTA moving. This includes working on new transit projects like the new Ontario line, subway project, the Scarborough subway extension, the Yonge North subway extension, as well as the underground extension of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, light rail transit line, which will connect to the airport. She is enthused to get people moving faster and more efficiently by making sure transportation projects throughout the province are meeting the needs of travelers and businesses to help local economies and create jobs. Her comprehensive knowledge of municipal, provincial, and federal orders of government has allowed her to effectively address transit concerns of Ontarians and local issues within Etobicoke Centre. She came to Canada from Poland when she was 4 years old As a successful immigrant Canadian citizen, she understands the challenges of newcomers face when beginning a new life here in Canada. Minister Surma holds a degree in public policy, business and commerce from the University of Guelph, as well as a public relations designation from Ryerson University. So please, everyone, join me in welcoming Minister Surma. Thank you.
I think Minister Surma was all of a sudden her connection's frozen there. So while she re-engages with us, Kevin, if you, Kelsey, if you could unmute Kevin just for a moment.
Yeah.
Kevin, the 407, as you mentioned, it's an integral part of the transportation that runs through Mississauga. What are some of the future developments that you have in store for the 407 that may not attach to Mississauga, but just make transit so much easier across the corridor?
Yeah, well, when the Young North subway gets done, there could be a connection there as part of a larger transportation hub and a link to GO and Metrolinx and local transit, which will come off the highway. Right now, this year, we did the additional 33 kilometers of new lanes between 401 and 410. And the way our contract works is that once traffic reaches a certain level, we are required to widen the road and add a lane. And so when we add lanes, we usually build them 2 at a time, and we open 1 at a time and then finish the middle. It's quite a good process. It works well. Unfortunately, during COVID, because our traffic is way down, we get a lot of work done during the day on the road now.
Well, I know that I'm one of those. I think I'm a platinum member of 407. So
good.
I appreciate those. I see the minister has joined us. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll turn it over to the Honorable Kinga Surma. Minister.
Well, what an entrance here. I got locked off there for a second, so I apologize. I don't know where I froze, but I just wanted to say thank you to David and Kevin for the wonderful introduction. To all the members and sponsors for, of course, putting this event together, and some familiar names and faces, seeing that the Greater Toronto Airports Authority, Teens Learn to Drive, as well as my friend Rudy Cazzetto, the MPP from Mississauga Lakeshore, is here with us today. It's a pleasure to join you all virtually this morning. I hope everyone is keeping safe and well. This goes without saying, but I truly miss attending these events in person, speaking face to face, and making meaningful new connections. And as we near the end of 2020, I think it's safe to say that this past year has been a difficult one for many, for our colleagues, our neighbors, our communities, and our businesses. The boundaries between work and home have never been more blurred, and many people are working extremely hard to adapt their business models to this new reality. Whether you are a business trying to keep your doors open and pay your employees, or a municipality providing critical frontline services while facing historic deficits, 2020 has been incredibly challenging. But when I look at how the people of Ontario have responded, it gives me immense hope. Premier Ford often talks about the Ontario spirit that this pandemic has revealed, and it couldn't be more true. I know that Ontario will come through this pandemic stronger than ever, and our government is taking action to make sure that happens. We have a plan to get Ontario on the path to recovery, and it includes making infrastructure, and especially public transit, a priority. Investing in infrastructure creates jobs and stimulates our economy. Even before this pandemic, our government had the most ambitious infrastructure plan in Ontario's history. A 10-year, more than $140 billion plan, including more than $60 billion for public transit alone. Ontario has a significant infrastructure deficit inherited from past governments that was already in urgent need of addressing. But the COVID-19 pandemic has made it even more critical. We need to get building, to get shovels in the ground faster so we can deliver much needed services and realize benefits sooner. Investing in public transit creates new full-time jobs through construction and gives more people greater access to work and major employment centers. To put us on the right path forward, Ontario's Ministry of Labour and Ministry of Infrastructure are investing in and expanding skilled labor programs and training across the province, bringing in more local skilled labor to deliver these ambitious transit projects. Once built, reliable, fast, and frequent public transit across the province's busiest corridors will be the key to unlocking Ontario's economic potential and will attract future workers and talent to sustain that momentum. It's simple. Public transit directly helps businesses, their employees, and encourages economic development. That's why our government recently introduced the Ontario Rebuilding and Recovery Act. If passed, that legislation would be a bold step to accelerate the building of key infrastructure projects, help create new jobs, and lay the foundation for a strong economy. It would expand on the Building Transit Faster Act we introduced earlier this year to reduce red tape, barriers in the planning, design, and construction of major infrastructure like highway and public transit projects. It's a critical part of our Made in Ontario plan for growth, renewal, and long-term recovery. Not only would that legislation help our economy recover, but it would also help us deliver the infrastructure that the GTA so desperately needs to prepare for the future. The GTA is Ontario's economic engine, and as you undoubtedly know, the population here in the GTA, including Mississauga, is expected to surge over the next 2 decades. By 2031, the GTA's population is expected to rise by 2.6 million, which means almost 7.5 million people will call this region home. By 2046, that number will climb to 9.5 million. And Mississauga and Peel region will be at the forefront of that growth. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all that congestion is already a major issue. It's something that costs us billions in lost productivity every year, not to mention the negative impact it has on people's quality of life. If we have any hope of meeting future demands, we must make public transit a priority. It's efficient, environmentally sustainable, and a real solution to our growing congestion issue. We are investing billions in public transit infrastructure that will directly improve the lives of millions of people in the GTA, including Mississauga. For example, our $28.5 billion subway expansion program will transform the GTA's transit network into the modern, connected system that the region deserves. Together, the new Ontario line and 3 extensions comprise the largest subway expansion in Canadian history and increase our subway system by 50%. The Ontario line will deliver a technological advanced subway with the highest degree of automation, on par with subway systems in Paris, Copenhagen, and Barcelona, among the best in the world. And the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension will be a 9.2-kilometer extension of the Eglinton Crosstown from Mount Dennis to Renforth Gateway, with a planned future connection to Toronto Pearson International Airport, the single largest employment center in all of Canada. And for those who live and work in or near Mississauga, it will have connections to the Up Express, the Kitchener GO line, and My Way and GO bus services via the Mississauga Transitway at Renforth. The Hurontario LRT is another great example of a transformational project that will make getting around Mississauga and Brampton much easier. Once completed, the 19-stop, 18-kilometer line running in a dedicated lane will give riders a smooth, fast, and convenient alternative to driving. And with connections to 2 GO lines, the Mississauga Transitway and the Zoom Transitway, it will open up transit options to thousands throughout Peel region and GTA overall. And of course, we continue to make GO expansion a priority as we invest billions to transform the GO rail into an all-day rapid transit network with 2-way all-day service every 15 minutes over core segments. When you have an opportunity to see how these projects connect, it's very exciting. Just 2 weeks ago, Minister Mulrooney and I held a virtual event to mark the opening of the new Cooksville GO station, where we were joined by MPP Rashid and Councillor Demerla on behalf of Mayor Crombie. And when you see a state-of-the-art new station for GO customers, and think that it will one day connect to the brand new Huron-Ontario LRT, well, it's hard not to be optimistic about the future state of transportation in Mississauga. And as we look to the future, our transit plans are about more than just building new lines. We have the opportunity, and I would argue the responsibility, to not just build transit stations, but to create dynamic, complete, mixed-use communities around transit. I'm proud to be leading our government's new transit-oriented communities program, reimagining surplus lands to build bright new communities around transit stations. This approach will provide a mix of housing, including affordable housing, retail, commercial, and community amenities like daycares around transit stations. Putting more services within walking distance of people's homes and public transit, saving time and money. Earlier this year, we introduced the Transit-Oriented Communities Act, which will help us deliver these communities along our new subway projects. And since we introduced that legislation, the response has been tremendous. We've heard from multiple municipalities across the province who want to make transit-oriented communities a priority. And that's why, as a part of the Ontario Rebuilding and Recovery Act, we are proposing to expand our transit-oriented communities approach beyond the new subway stations to other provincial projects like boat rail. On these projects, we will be actively exploring opportunities to build transit-oriented communities that will increase transit ridership, reduce congestion and emissions, and build integrated, complete communities to benefit the region. And we are always looking for opportunities to create partnerships with the private sector and local municipalities to help us deliver on these goals. Our government is building an integrated and smart transportation network that will position us to compete today and for generations to come. The status quo simply won't work any longer. We need new, innovative ideas and new ways of thinking. With the help of the business community, our partners, stakeholders, groups like this, and Ontarians everywhere, we will get Mississauga and the rest of our province back on track and come back from this pandemic stronger and better prepared than ever. We're well on our way to building the best transit network in Canada, and I couldn't be more proud. Thank you again for inviting me to speak to you. Thank you for everything that you have done to help your communities during this very difficult time. Let's continue to work together as we get through this second wave. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Minister. And the questions are pouring in here. So you've stimulated a lot of discussion with your comments. Thank you very much. First of all, let's talk about the transit-oriented communities. First of all, can you explain to us, give us an example, paint a picture in our mind, what a transit-oriented community might look like?
Well, certainly. There are two possible examples I can mention today that Metrolinx has been working on for some time, and that would be the Woodbine GO station as well as Mimico GO. Although I have to say we have done a lot of work since then to develop the program. In saying that, I think we've made a serious mistake with building stations in isolation, particularly in big municipalities where there are many people living together. And so what we hope to do is use lands that, whether it be surplus or lands that are required for the construction, to build more than just a station, to build possible residential, affordable housing units, and speak to the local community to see what service gaps exist within that area. And we think that this follows good planning principles. We certainly have received very positive feedback from whether it be planners, housing advocates, municipalities. They're very excited with this program and this approach, and that's why we chose to expand it beyond the subways, the subway plan.
Prior to Howard Ing's retirement from the Greater Toronto Airports Authority, I know that he had several meetings with Phil Verster from Metrolinx, and I'm not sure if that was before you were appointed as the associate minister, but they talked about making the airport a destination as opposed to a point of contact. And I know that Phil was very supportive of that kind of concept as well. Is that what you have a vision for when you talk about these transit-oriented communities?
That's right. We've seen in many places of the world, I can reference Japan. I think in Canada, really the only other jurisdiction that has really explored this would be Vancouver. But, you know, people here today using let's just use the system today, it's just walking to a station, but we can provide so much more than that based on the surplus lands that exist, based on the construction lands that will be needed to construct the transit line itself and the station. Why not provide more? Why not provide whether it's a coffee shop or whether it's a daycare center or whether it's, you know, more opportunities for retail within that location, or maybe there's a huge desire for a grocery store or senior services or something like that. And so we can encompass that into the actual development of the station and partner with our private partners to do so. You know, one thing for certain that I must express is that every single community is different. Every single community is diverse, has different demographics, different needs. And so we are really taking a very close look at each neighborhood where these stations may exist to really determine what services are missing there. We're speaking with the local, we will be consulting with local communities to make sure we get it right, but it's certainly an opportunity. We are expanding the subway system by 50%. Let's get it done right. And certainly let's work with other municipalities that are very excited about this program and see what we can do there as well.
Well, I guess we look forward to the day when I can turn to my wife, Joanne, and say, honey, let's go for dinner and some holiday shopping down at the transit hub.
That's the dream.
While we're on the dream, let's talk about two-way all-day go. I know that that is on the map now for the Kitchener line, but we still remain languishing with two-way all-day go on the Milton line. And I know that this is something that has been on the plate for many years. When I attended a Metrolinx update, I noticed that it was not on their radar for at least the next 10 years. Can you give us an idea? What are the roadblocks? What are the challenges? And what's the future for two-way all-day go through that line?
Certainly. Well, as you know, there is an active procurement. We also have, I would say, approximately 29 infrastructure projects that are happening across the province of Ontario and the Greater Toronto Hamilton area, whether it's tunneling under 21 lanes of traffic under the 401 to make sure that we can add additional rail and trains on that Kitchener GO line, or work being done in Hamilton. Certainly, Milton continues to be a priority for us. It is something that Mr. Verster hears from our caucus regularly. We have a very strong member who is very determined to make sure that we improve and increase service along that line. As you know, in order to make that possible, we need to come to an agreement, negotiate with our rail partners. But Phil is a very good negotiator. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons why we're keeping him around. And you know, we made a commitment to the people of Ontario, to the people of the Greater Toronto Hamilton area, that two-way all-day go is a priority, and the Milton line continues to be a priority for us. And hopefully we will have some positive news to share in the future.
Well, I look forward to taking the first train ride with you when that happens. Hopefully it happens soon. Minister, let's talk about LRT. The LRT project, which is a $2 billion project running up the heart of Mississauga. What's the update? Has COVID slowed that project down? Are we on schedule? Where are we sitting with that one?
Well, thankfully, as you know, construction, particularly provincial construction projects, were deemed essential during the early days of the pandemic. Work has continued. Construction sites, of course, had to adjust their stations, their schedules, to make sure that they are abiding by all of the regulations set by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Labor. In saying that, we have continued construction. In fact, we're making great progress on the Huron-Ontario line. Work continues. We continue to actually seize this opportunity to get as much work done as possible. I know actually in some cases across the province of Ontario, because traffic and congestion really slowed down because people were working from home and not traveling as much, we were able to get work done even faster. But Huron-Ontario line continues to move forward, and I actually think that we'll be providing an update to the public very shortly.
On the topic of integration, there's been a lot of talk about transit integration across the region. Where we talk about the region is at Oshawa to Hamilton, north to Barrie. So we've had several conversations about transit integration. Of course, there's a lot of individuals that are parochial about this. They don't want to give up the control over their transit systems. But Phil Verster and I had a very, very good conversation a couple of years ago about fare integration and what that might look like. As you know, Mississauga is a net importer of jobs. It's getting very expensive to live in the city of Mississauga as it is in Toronto. So we need to import our workers from other jurisdictions. Where does the province stand on fare integration? What would the challenges be in making that happen? And finally, when will you make it happen?
Well, thank you. What I can say to you is fare and service integration is something I am very passionate about. I've lived in Toronto for most of my professional life, and I represent a riding that borders Mississauga. And so I know very well the challenges my constituents or the constituents of Mississauga face where they're coming across that border, whether it be going to Islington to take a bus across, paying those extra fares, or whether it be through Wheel-Trans as well, having some difficulty and challenges getting to where they need to go for our most vulnerable populations. This is something I'm very, very passionate about. I too have had very good conversations with Phil Verster, CEO of Metrolinx, and in fact, this is so important to Minister Mulrooney and myself that we want to engage municipalities, particularly municipalities in the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area, as a part of phase 2 of the Safe Restart. As you know, we were able to negotiate federal funding to help transportation agencies during this very difficult time, because as you know, ridership levels have been I think it's lowest they've ever been. And so through that partnership with the federal government and by working with municipalities and providing supports, we really want to make sure that we're having these very important conversations about how we can make travel across municipal boundaries easier and more affordable for the people of Ontario. We think this is very critical, especially as we start to recover from an economy perspective, but also as we continue to encourage people to take public transit again. I know a lot of families still remain very cautious on that front. But this is something that we are engaging with municipalities about. I know that there are very strong supporters about fare integration and service integration, such as Rick Leary from the TTC as well. He has very strong opinions. And so we really want to use this opportunity to solve some of the long-standing issues that we've had in transportation. And I'm certain that with the current climate of all levels of government really cooperating and working together, the minister and myself would like to seize this opportunity to really tackle fare and service integration in the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area.
Minister, the Mississauga Board of Trade is a member of the Peel Goods Movement Task Force. We recognize there's close to $2 billion of goods moved through the region on a daily basis. Can you give us some insights on what you're doing with respect to 400 series highways, other transit initiatives that would ease the pressure of congestion through Peel Region. Any thoughts on one of the programs that I saw was an artificial intelligence program about moving transportation 24/7, off-peak hours. These are all ideas that have been put forward. Where do you and your ministry sit on this?
Well, I certainly understand and recognize that moving goods is just as important as moving people. And in the early phase of the pandemic, Minister Mulrooney and myself were very much focused on making sure our commercial truck drivers could continue to operate efficiently throughout the pandemic. We provided them with great supports. We were there for them to make sure that there wasn't too much difficulty in terms of crossing the border, and or to make sure that they had access to testing. And now we're investing in several rest areas as well, because we so appreciate the work that they're doing. I mean, we wouldn't have food in our grocery stores if it wasn't for them, and they rely on our highway network. And so we believe in public transit, but we also recognize the importance that our highway network has in terms of making sure hospitals can get the materials, pharmacies can get the important medicine and medications that they need, that the people of Ontario need. We have made historic investments in our highway system, $2.6 billion last year. We continue to make improvements. We continue to constantly rehabilitate our highways. We are making improvements on the 401 in Mississauga and heading over to Milton, which I'm sure your constituents are very excited about it. I know that the Mississauga caucus was certainly pleased to hear of this work. We've presented the preferred route for the GTA West corridor, which we think is critical in easing some of that pressure and making sure that goods move quickly across the Greater Toronto area. So we recognize public transit is a must, but we also recognize that we need to continue to expand and keep our highways in very good shape.
Where are we with artificial intelligence with respect to transportation? I know that one of our members, Uber, has been working on a project about AI and autonomous vehicles for their services. Intact Insurance, another Mississauga-based company, is heavily involved in that. Of course, from the insurance standpoint, they would want to be involved in that. So where are we on that? What are the final barriers to approving something with respect to AI and autonomous vehicles?
Well, I think one of the approaches that our government has had is to really embrace technology, innovation. I think, and the Premier feels this way, we have the brightest, the best in the province of Ontario and Canada. We have some of the best colleges, training programs, and academic institutions. I know that there are several universities. For example, I went to visit Guelph. I'm a Guelph alumni, just so you know.
Oh.
Not giving them preferential treatment, but I did go to see my old campus. And they are doing very good work with transportation and new innovation in terms of road safety and studying the behavior of drivers, for example. But one of the items that was included in our new legislation, it's an economic development item. It's about looking at creating possible zones within municipalities so that we can test new technologies quickly, so that we can encourage, municipalities across the province of Ontario are involved in different industries and different sectors. And so we want to give them the ability to be able to test these products within a particular place, so that we can innovate and really embrace technology. And I think that your question in terms of transportation would fall very much in line with that. And I think technology and being innovative and really embracing new technology will certainly help us recover economically in years to come from the very deep impact this pandemic has had on our economy.
Well, Minister, we have the perfect spot for you to do a pilot on this, and it's very close to your riding. We've talked about the Airport Corporate Center and that project that we had discussed, pre-COVID. That's an area that could really use some autonomous vehicles in there, moving people in and out of there, and maybe shuttling them over to an off-site space. We know that that's a very, very heavily traveled area, as I know that having your riding, butt right up against the northern side of that. A notion has been floated out about, you talked about the transit communities and having these hubs built for retail and maybe some commercial space in there. What information can you share about using those transit hubs for affordable housing?
Well, as you know, we've signed a memorandum of understanding with the City of Toronto when it comes to transit-oriented communities, and we've signed a similar one with York Region. And one of the discussions that our staff at MTO are having with city staff is a conversation around shared priorities. What are things that are very important to the municipality, things that you would like to use this as an opportunity to address? And at the same time, what are the provincial priorities as well? Both the City of Toronto and the province have identified affordable housing as a priority that needs to be addressed. Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister Clark, has been very outspoken about this issue, and he is very much engaged in the transit-oriented communities file. In fact, we almost do everything together to make sure that we can use transit-oriented communities as a manner in which to build more affordable housing in the province of Ontario. So the minister is very much involved and has in fact been helping guide some of my work in terms of the transit-oriented communities file, but he's a veteran politician, so he's very intelligent, and so I've relied on him very heavily over the last year and a half, but certainly that is very much a priority for our government.
Transit ridership has been down, right across the province. Certainly here in Mississauga, we've felt a tremendous decline. We've had conversations with Commissioner Jeff Wright, who's responsible for transit within the city of Mississauga. The federal government came up with some money to ease some of the burden or ease some of the pain with transit ridership, and give some money to municipalities to offset some of the costs that they have had the burden of. Mississauga did take our request, and they did make a free fare month right at the beginning of COVID to help ease some of the financial burden for transit riders. What plans do you have within the provincial government to help ease some of the financial burden that municipal transit authorities are facing at the moment?
Well, as a part of phase one restart agreement, we've provided municipalities with, I believe, approximately $660 million to offset their operational deficits since the beginning of the pandemic leading up until September. Phase two, we are currently in phase two, where municipalities are working with MTO, providing their financials to continue to demonstrate the challenges that they are facing. We want to make sure that funding goes to the transit agencies that have seen or been hit the hardest, seen the lowest ridership numbers. So we are working through that. There will be more support to come, but we are working through all of the financials. And we know that ridership numbers have been a little bit higher in certain municipalities than others. It depends, I suppose, where the COVID-19 hotspots are and where people have more restrictions and continue to be more diligent. But in saying that, the minister and myself are constantly speaking with our municipal partners, with transit agencies, checking in to see how they're doing, what else they need. And we will continue to work together through this difficult time. And you know, from our perspective, we are feeling that pain too. Our ridership numbers on the GO Rail and Go Bus system is very, very low, continues to be very low. You know, we've done everything we can to make people feel safe and comfortable, and people still use it, but we are certainly feeling that pain ourselves.
Yes, and we also recognize that municipalities that have higher density and a larger portion of their fares come from the fare box, they might be doing a little bit better than some of municipalities like Mississauga that have a lower density and a lower amount coming from the fare box. So I'm sure that you will do everything you can to help us out in that area. Infrastructure and transit projects have a tremendous impact on the economy. We know that infrastructure does do that. The trickle down effect, and I forget the exact number, maybe you have the number of the trickle down effect of a dollar spent on infrastructure, how that impacts local economies. What plans do you have to support? I know, recognizing that we do have $2 billion for an LRT line. So now that we've got that, you know, I'm going to be like a little kid here. Okay, thanks. We got that. So now what am I going to get next? What projects do you have in store for Mississauga coming up?
Well, that's a very good question. I think
or the region. I mean, I won't pigeonhole you to Mississauga. We'll talk about the region.
Well, we're in the region. We're making $20.5 billion investment, as you heard me say, on our subway expansion of our subway system by 50%. We are making improvements to the 401. We are proceeding with the GTA West corridor work, which I know is very, very important to the people in that region. We're very busy, I have to say. We're continuing forward with two-way all we go, which we know is very much important. And I think what's different about this government than maybe previous governments is that we really recognize public transit and transportation infrastructure as a priority. Because like I said, it really goes hand in hand with economic development and stimulating our economy. And like I said before, I don't think past governments really did enough to invest in our highway system and our public transit system, and that's why we're playing a bit of catch up. But I think in the last 2.5 years that we've been in government, I think we've made more. I don't think anyone can challenge us, our government, in terms of whether we support investing in public transit infrastructure or our highway network, to be quite frank with you, because Minister Mulrooney, myself, and this is something that's very important to the Premier as well. The Premier is very passionate about transportation, and he really wants to make sure that he can improve the day-to-day lives of people by making it easier for them to connect. And I talk about the subway system and the investments we're making there, but this is building the foundation and the ability for us to really take a step forward into regional transportation, because the Scarborough subway is going to have connections with Durham Transit, as you know. Our Young North extension will have connections with the municipal transit system there, and the Eglinton Crosstown West extension will connect to the Mississauga Transit. So it's really creating a regional transportation network, and that's why it's so important that we keep moving forward with it.
I think your comment about regional transportation feeds right into one of our viewers' questions. Paul wants to know, why doesn't the government just take over all the transit in the region, and then you can do whatever you want with it, and maybe will that make it a better system if it were controlled by one agency?
That's a very difficult question.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Paul's known for that, Minister. He does it to me.
Not sure if I have all the answers. But what I think is most important now is to really create that that foundation, that network, and really address service gaps. You know, I think that you can't jump ahead of yourself too far. I think we have a task at hand here. And I think that the faster that we expand the system, expand the subway system, fill those gaps, work on service integration, we'll be able to do a lot more in the future.
The federal government, of course, is you know, going down the path on one of their commitments about the environment. One of the concerns that has been proposed at the federal level is the clean fuel standards and the rapid pace of enforcement. Have you had conversations with your federal counterparts about easing this in? I mean, especially we're trying to come in, we're trying to get out of an economic catastrophe here, and to have this layered on top of businesses that are trying to recover, you know, seems a little premature to us. So have you had any conversations with your federal counterparts about this and trying to convince them to back off a little bit?
Well, I think this would have to be a conversation that the Minister of Environment, Conservation, and Parks would have to have Minister Urick. And I know that all of our ministers are in regular touch points, regular conversations with their federal counterparts on many issues. I know Minister Mulrooney and Minister Scott are constantly speaking to the federal government about the transportation projects and federal support for those projects. So I think that would be a question we'd have to ask Minister Urick. But in saying that, I think that also gives us a very strong case when we're having discussions with the federal government to really encourage them to support our transportation projects, because we know that that is good for the environment. We know that that's a healthy choice, gets people out of their cars, and reduces emissions. So that's the message we're sharing with our federal counterparts. Certainly environment is important to our government. It's clearly very important to the federal government, but let's make sure we invest in public transit, because that's what really gets people out of their cars.
When we talk about cars and buses and trucks and all of those types of vehicles that are on the road, alternative fuels come to mind, and what we could possibly do. What can we do to get these vehicles off the road, encourage people to take more public transit? It may be a generational thing. I mean, I know that I'm not going to get on the bus to go to square one. That's for sure. I mean, I'm taking my car, but maybe my youngest daughter, who's 28, you know, who doesn't want to own a car. So is it a generational thing to shift the mindset of individuals to public transit and get more vehicles off the road?
I think it depends on everyone's circumstances, where they work, where they go to school, where they live. But what is most important is to be able to have access. So I will use myself as an example. Where I live, I have to walk 10 to 15 minutes to hop on a bus. Then I have to take the bus for about 20 minutes or so down to Kipling. And then I have to hop on the subway and take it down, and then go north up to Queen's Park just to go to work. And I take the TTC quite often, especially when the House is in session, because I don't want to get stuck in traffic, and I can read my notes peacefully on the TTC. So I do that often. But the journey itself is a challenge. And I am a young person. I can make that 10, 15-minute walk and wait outside in the cold. But how does a mother with a baby do that? Or how does a senior do that? Or how does someone with you know, some physical disabilities do that? It's not the same. And so if we can expand our public transit systems in such a way that they're very close to where they live, and the transition from one mode of transit to another is seamless and easy, will encourage more and more people, and more people will consider it as an option. I believe, and there are countless examples of cities where really you can take the subway to get to any part of the city that you want. And unfortunately, we have challenges here in the city of Toronto, especially, where it's a very long journey.
And we know that when you do take the TTC, you've got that little Batcave entrance that you can take from the subway stop right into Queen's Park that you have there. So good for you. You know, when we're talking about that, of course, there'd be tremendous pushback from residents if we start running buses through through side streets. Do you see that might be an area for autonomous vehicles and artificial intelligence to shuttle people out to the main areas?
Actually, I think that is a real possibility. In fact, I was at Ryerson University prior to the pandemic, and a group of young people showed me their project, the work that they were doing in terms of autonomous vehicles, and actually using that same strategy of having them go through side streets and having a meeting point on specific corners to pick people up. And it was quite impressive. And so I think all of these different ideas are really being explored right now, especially by universities and colleges across Canada. And you know, it's certainly it's exciting to be part of a generation that's really innovative and really looking at technology on how it can really make people's lives easier as well.
Well, with the technology that we have available today with rideshare programs like Uber, you know, maybe we expand on that, and the little bus shows up right at your doorstep to pick you up and take you out to the big bus sometime in the future. Minister, we're almost out of time here. Will Mississauga ever get a subway?
Well, that truly depends. That truly depends on what your constituents want, how hard you fight for it, and whether there's a provincial counterpart that's supportive of subway expansion. So let me just leave it at that.
So we need some political will along with some constituent will to make that happen. I mean, I know that subways are very expensive. There's no question about it. They're expensive. They're disruptive to individuals, and of course LRTs are a much less expensive alternative. Would you say that is that the preferred direction, is to go LRT in, let's say, outside of the downtown core of Toronto? Is the preference to go LRT?
It depends. It depends if it's a municipal project. It depends if it's a provincial project. It depends if it is a provincial project. Then this is something that Metrolinx would examine. They would prepare a business case. They would evaluate it. They would look at the assessment of all various options. I know, for example, and I'll speak to the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension and the South Scarborough Subway. A lot of work was put into the business cases to really review different alternatives and to see which one was the most suitable. So it depends if it's a municipal project. It depends what the municipality wants. It depends if it's a provincial project, and then it ultimately depends on the business case as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know in the case of our LRT, I want to commend you and your ministry and our friends at Metrolinx, who have done an amazing job in collaboration with the city in helping businesses, we'll call it, navigate the challenges of having an LRT run through the city. I think everybody's done a marvelous job on that. So congratulations to everybody that's been involved with that. Minister, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. This has really been great. I look forward to carrying on our post-COVID conversations about the various projects that we have on the table to discuss. But right now I'd like to call on one of our other sponsors, CN Rail. to say a few words and to thank you for being with us. Daniel Salvatore is the Manager of Public Affairs for Ontario with CN, and I invite Daniel to join us now. Daniel?
Well, thanks for that, David, and thank you, Minister, for your time and the very interesting information you shared today. A lot of pertinent files for sure, and you certainly have your hands full. I wanted to recognize and thank you that the movement of freight as an important factor, not only during COVID to get what the long haul and short haul tractor trailers move in our communities. At CN, we like to say if you wear it, you buy it, or you eat it. We likely moved it. And so, while we work with our trucking and transportation partners, freight is absolutely an important part of Ontario's economy and the movement of that freight. Having said that, at CN, I'm sure you know, we also recognize that it is a top priority of Mississauga and regions of the GTHA and the province that commuter service needs to increase. And I'm happy to point to collaborations that continue and a strong partnership between CN and the province that led to some pretty significant increases in service levels by Metrolinx. And I know those conversations continue. Capacity is something that needs to be invested in. You've said that loud and clear. Investing in infrastructure is important. So I won't take too much more of everyone's time. Just say once again, thank you, David, to you and your team. Thank you again to Minister Surma. And CN's proud to be a partner of the Mississauga Board of Trade and a sponsor of today's event. So thank you so much. Excellent.
Thanks, Daniel. Minister, I have a couple of things that are coming up. If you don't mind, I'm just going to run through them quickly. Of course, nothing so important as you being with us today, but we do have a couple of other things that are coming up between now and the end of the year. On December the 2nd, we have a virtual professional development series, Thriving in the Age of Digital Disruption. This is part 1 of a multi-part system, The Power of the Gig Economy. On December 9th, we have our virtual 2020 annual general meeting, which should prove to be exciting this year. We've never done a virtual one before, so this will be interesting. As well, I'm happy to report our winter edition of Connect Magazine. It's the only business publication in Mississauga. It still has a few advertising spots, so contact your membership services manager. It's a cost-effective way to have your business get exposure for your products, services, or just get your message out. We also have many other digital communication tools to help promote your company. Reach out to Solange Barcena from our MBOT team to discuss your ad submission and article. Minister, a very special thanks to you for joining us. I want to thank our sponsors, 407 ETR and CN Rail, and to all of our attendees for being with us today. Minister, thank you. And to our attendees, I wish you continued success in your business.